2, 1.
First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, Greg Nibbler here with Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us, and appreciate everybody who tunes into this show wherever you're watching. Thanks for being here. Today, right now, we're going to be talking about something that probably a lot of you are now aware of, or if you're not aware of, Netflix is going to start charging you for those extra users. All those password sharing days are now going to start costing money. But along with that, anytime there's change, guess what? There's somebody out there who wants to take advantage of that and try to scam you. And we're going to talk about that, what's going on there as far as the potential scams, what to look out for, how to avoid that, what they're doing. And also, we're going to talk about some things going on with online sports betting. But to do all this, we are joined right now by Tony Sabaj from Checkpoint Software Technologies, who's going to walk through these for us. And Tony, appreciate you being here. You know, I feel like every time something new happens, there is a new scam, of course, that's going to be out there trying to take advantage of people. And a lot of times, I also feel like people think, oh no, it's people who aren't very technologically savvy. It's going to happen to them, but it can really happen to a lot of people, I feel like, and that's why it's important to be aware of everything. So, Tony, can you start off here with this? Talk to us about this new Netflix one.
Sure. So, Netflix is changing their password sharing policy. So they're trying to crack down on people sharing their passwords amongst people that don't live in their household. So they're doing this for reasons mainly monetary. Their subscriber growth is down, so they're trying to get people who are, sharing accounts across different families and friends to buy their own accounts. So there's nothing inherently insecure about that. They're enforcing it in different ways by looking at the IP addresses, the addresses that you're coming from, and making sure that they're coming from the same location, and they have rules in place to allow device registration, so you can still watch Netflix if you're being legitimate, while you're traveling or from a hotel or something like that. So there's nothing inherently insecure about what Netflix is doing. You may not be happy about it, but right. It is a business decision that they made. But with these changes, the hackers or the bad actors are taking advantage of this by increasing their phishing scams around Netflix. So with any kind of phishing, it's usually some type of brand impersonation where a bad actor or a hacker is faking a website or an email from a legitimate source like Netflix or DHL or Microsoft or any major corporation out there, and getting people to give up their IDs and passwords. And then those IDs and passwords are used to then, steal data, steal information, steal money, steal your Netflix account, or, as we'll talk about when we get to the sports betting topic, to do things like what we call credential stuffing that we'll get to. So what users need to be aware of is that with these changes with Netflix, people are going to start getting legitimate, you can't use this Netflix account, you've been locked out, you're not in the same household, and you need to either buy your own account or pay, extra $8 a month to add more people to your account. And those are going to be legitimate messages from Netflix. But what the hackers are doing is sending out phishing emails, phishing websites that pretend to be Netflix, that are using this increased scrutiny on Netflix logins to get people to give up their IDs and passwords, and then can be used for a number of other nefarious acts.
So they're going to probably look like they could be legitimate. And also, I feel like for this one, since this is going to be a new thing for everybody, seeing that kind of messaging from Netflix, the legit emails, no one really knows exactly or is accustomed to what those are going to look like or what the wording is going to be.
So there's no precedence to go back and say, oh, this doesn't look like the same Netflix error I've been getting before, because no one's seen these errors before now that they started to enforce it. So really with any phishing scam, and not just Netflix, but really, any phishing scam out there, number of things to look at is, one, if it's an email, look at the actual sender of the email. I can change the display name of my email to say whatever I want, but I can't necessarily change what the actual email is. So it should be coming from, customer service or no reply at netflix.com. When you look at the actual email that it came from, it's probably going to be some auto-generated, random generated, numbers at Gmail or some kind of free or private email service, and it's not actually going to be coming from Netflix. If it's a website where it's a link to a website, look at the URL. It's going to be, if it's legitimate, it's going to be somethingnetflix.com. If it's a phishing site, it may be Netflix spelled with, two L's, or maybe even using foreign characters to represent, more, Latin-based alphabet. So be cognizant of both the email address and the website that you're going to. And if you have any doubts, what I always tell people is if you have any doubts that you think it's a phishing email, then just log into your Netflix account yourself. Go to www.netflix.com or open up the app on your device, and then log in, and then they'll have the error messages or the communication in your account in that app. And that way you can be for sure that you're going to the proper account, as opposed to clicking a link or following a random email that you're getting.
Right. And I do, going back to that, this being the first time this is coming out, and there's no precedence really to compare what's happening. There's also could be the factor of people are going to be frustrated when they get that email. It's not necessarily the most popular move that Netflix has done. It's a business decision, but it doesn't mean people are excited about it. So they may just be, frantically clicking through on things and not really taking a minute to pay attention to that. I just think that could be another issue in there as well. So look out for the
people aren't happy about this change. They're not, you're just going to want to get through it. They're going to click on the link and be like,
rage
okay,
clicking.
I have to boot my adult child that's living in a different house, or, my friends from college that I shared passwords with for years. And you're just going to get rid of them, or attempt to get rid of them. And you're going to, give your credentials to a bad actor who's going to say, oh, login failed. And now they have your credentials.
So take a breath when you get that email. Make sure it is legit, that it's from Netflix. Check out that URL, and don't click through on a link if you don't know exactly where it's going. So any other advice that you have for people on that?
So, and really with any kind of online account, what I would also normally do is, and this dovetails nicely into our next conversation too, is most reputable online services or online accounts have something called multi-factor or two-factor authentication, where you have to provide a secondary level of authentication. It could be you register your phone and you get a text message, you have to put a code in, or you use a different app like Microsoft or Google Authenticator to provide a secondary step that nobody has that password. It's a one-time generated key that's can only be used once. So that's always a good thing to turn on. And if you don't see that secondary authentication, then it's probably a scam.
Okay. So that's definitely an important one. Well, you mentioned that going into the other side of things, the online sports betting, which is huge as well. I mean, there's so many different ways you can do that for about anything. I mean, there's all kinds of prop bets and even things that you can place money on. But there are some more scams going on that. Can you fill us in on this?
Yeah. So the recent scams that we're seeing around online sports betting is not necessarily flaws or insecurities in the actual apps themselves. So there are a handful of major sports betting apps out there. These companies take security very seriously. The gaming industry is very much on top of security. The same thing about two-factor authentication holds true, and more so, in sports betting, when you can lose money as opposed to just getting your Netflix account locked out. Yeah. But what we're seeing is an attack that's called credential stuffing. And what that means is there are bad actors, hackers out there that are buying lists of usernames and passwords that have been breached from other sites. And knowing that a lot of people, which you shouldn't do, but everybody does it, reuses passwords, they're trying those same user ID and password combinations on betting sites, and they're either getting successful logins and selling them, or actually logging in and actually stealing money from those betting accounts, setting up a different bank account, transferring, debits and credits from your winnings, hopefully in your online betting, to their own bank account. So there's been a recent attack. A man from Wisconsin, actually, for about 3 years was doing credential stuffing and was able to get anywhere from $600 to $2 million. It's not quite known, both from siphoning money and then also from selling valid user ID and password combinations to gambling sites for other people to log in and steal the money, because you can't just steal $2 million and go unnoticed. So he's selling it to other people that are then, getting money from those sites. So
Jeez.
what people need to do is not reuse passwords, because if a password's breached on your, some innocuous account that you don't really care about, if you're using that same ID and password combination on, say, your bank account or, a betting app, they're going to use this credential stuffing and just try those same credentials and be able to get in. It also holds true, kind of back to the Netflix. If you're sharing passwords and logins, you're giving your ID and password to a friend for using that same ID and password on a betting site. You've now given credentials to somebody else, and who knows where they're storing those credentials and who they've shared that password with. So that same ID and password combination can be used on your betting site. So don't reuse passwords, use strong passwords, use multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. And it's very hard to keep track of all these passwords. So there's a lot of good password managers out there that allow you to store your passwords in an app or in a secure location on your phone or your PC, and they sync amongst each other. So then you can just pull your IDs and passwords as you go into those sites. So you don't have to remember, at last count, I probably have 35 different accounts in my password manager that I manage. There's no way I'm going to remember all of those passwords. So that's how I keep track and not reuse passwords across different systems.
Yeah, that and as you mentioned, the two-factor authentication, enabling that when that's an option.
And those are the two biggest things people can do to help secure, especially when you have apps, banking apps and betting apps that are tied to actual financial dollar amounts. And I also recommend people from betting apps to use some type of intermediary device. So don't link your betting app to your main checking account. Either have a separate account that doesn't have any other logins, use something like PayPal, or even use like a preloadable debit card. So if someone does hack your betting site, they're limited to what money they have access to, and not your entire normal banking accounts.
Well, it does show how vast this is, how many different people are trying to work these ways. If this one guy in Wisconsin could have had up to $2 million, just on his own, and yet you have armies essentially of people out there trying to figure out how to scam you and phish, attack, and credential stuff. So definitely good to be aware. Tony, I appreciate you joining us to talk about this and give some good advice and make people aware. That Netflix one I feel like is going to get a lot of people, just because they're not going to be thinking about it clearly when they get that email. So definitely be aware of that. And thanks for bringing that to the light. Anything else that you want to share with everybody?
I just think good cyber hygiene is good for everybody. So not just Netflix or betting apps, but there's phishing scams and these types of scams all over the place. So, make sure, when you get an email, if it even looks suspicious, look at the sender, look at the URLs. And if you have a doubt, go directly to that website by typing it in yourself, instead of following links in what could even be somewhat suspicious emails, because the phishing attempts look really legitimate. I've even fallen for some of them in phishing tests. We have our own phishing test internally here at Checkpoint, and it says, here's a real site, here's a fake site. You got to decide in 5 seconds which one's real and which one's not. And, even being in this industry for a long time, I fell for it on, 2 out of 10 occasions. So
that says it right there. Yeah, and this is what you do, and it's still that hard. Although I would panic with 5 seconds to decide. So I'd probably definitely click the wrong one. Well, Tony, appreciate you being here. Always great to have this kind of information brought to us. And thanks for being here on Fox 12 Now today.
All right, thank you.
All right, and again, so that was Tony from Checkpoint Software Technologies, and really great to know about that stuff. I mean, these kinds of scams are out there. They can get you, and a lot of people fall victim to those. So some great advice that he just provided us. And thanks to everyone for joining Fox 12 Now, for being a part of the programming here. And that's it. If you're watching, you're a part of this. So you can always send me an email as well. That is fox12now@kptv.com. fox12now@kptv.com. You can join in. You can let me know if there's something that you think that we should be talking about, maybe a subject matter that you think is interesting. You can always let us know what that is, and perhaps we can do an interview about it. We've got a lot of programming. You can see it all at the YouTube channel, Fox 12 Oregon. Go under the live section. You can see everything that we've got right there. And of course, find out more information about a lot of what we talk about at kptv.com. Thanks for joining in. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. Tony, thanks.
Oh, thank you. And, you've got my email, so if you have any follow-up questions, let me know.
Okay, will do. Really appreciate it.